Everything you need to know and more about heating and cooling, electrical, garage doors, and plumbing is right here, right now, on the Absolute Home Service Podcast.
Hello again. We are thrilled you are joining us for another episode of the Absolute Home Service Podcast. I'm Vince Hauser, one of the co-hosts, and here with James McCarter.
How we doing? Good morning.
And today we are going to be interviewing Steve Kober, who actually works for us. He heads up the electrical division for Absolute Services. And we're going to be discussing electrical issues that you may have in your house and why you would need an electrician and what he does when he comes out, and really just some general information thing. I know most people aren't too up to date with electric. I mean personally, when I walk in the room, all I do is flip on the switch and it works. So I consider myself a partial electrician.
Is that how you test your electric too?
I do. Yeah. And if that switch, if that light doesn't come on, there's a problem. And that's when I call my wife. So anyway, you want to introduce yourself, Steve, and give us a little background on what you, how you got into the electrical business and.
Yeah, my name's Steve. I've been doing the electrical trade total for 18 years now. I started off in the Navy as electrician's mate. Came out of the Navy, did about a year doing residential in Pittsburgh.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, no problem. And then I took some time off from the electrical, did some public safety for 16 years, and then I went back into the trade and went back through apprenticeship just to refresh myself. I did a 4-year apprenticeship, passed actually top of my class, and I've been doing it ever since.
Awesome. Sounds like you got a pretty good background on what you're doing.
For the record, I've never been top of my class in anything, I don't think.
I don't know how I did it. I don't know.
I'm going to assume James hadn't been there either. He don't want to say it.
No comment. No comment. Well, Steve, so like Vince said, the whole purpose of this podcast here is we're trying to bring a vast amount of knowledge and your background, what you've been through, to our listeners, to our homeowners, to try and help them better, serve their house, make sure everything's up to date, inspected, different things like that, how we can help them, and then how Absolute Services, whether it be electrical, garage doors, plumbing, HVAC, how we can serve our clients in the area. So the biggest question that I've got, or the first question is, does the electrical wiring, along with the panel, outlets, or other electrical components, do those need regular maintenance?
Yes, just like your car needs oil changes and checks and, for your alignment and stuff like that. Your electrical system is technically if you can think about it like this, it's the electrical system is your heart and your veins and stuff like that of your body. If your electrical system, if your panel isn't working properly, if it's not functioning properly, your house isn't going to work properly. It's basically just going to be a shed. So if you don't maintain it, come in and look for basic problems that could happen, you don't know. A panel over time, could have a burned bus bar, which is just a fancy word for where they connect the breakers to the panel. Over time, if you get a little heat, you get a surge from a lightning strike, or even from your utility company, you get a surge back through it. It could cause damage to your electrical panel, which could eventually cause bigger problems.
How does a lightning strike affect the panel or any of the wiring of the house?
Well, because what will happen is you get an overcurrent. You'll get a whole lot of amperage through your system, a whole lot of voltage really quick through the system that it's not rated to handle. That's where we like to suggest surge protection to protect your house from that. So, and we do provide that service. But if you get that surge through there, it could heat up the bus bar, could heat up the breakers, could heat up the wire, and it could cause it to melt. And eventually, in the worst case scenario, it could cause a fire.
So are these issues? Is this like an old house thing, or is this if my house is 10 years old, 15 years old, is it? I mean, am I going to have electrical issues? Because I'm assuming if I'm in a newer house, that ain't going to happen. But I'm guessing if that's the case, there wouldn't be electricians running around.
Well, obviously, you could have a problem anytime. It doesn't matter if it's 2 days old house. If the lightning strikes, the systems aren't going to handle a direct strike no matter what we do. But a near strike, even a near strike on a new house will cause problems and havoc. I've literally been to houses where they've blown the the cable box that's on the outside where the cable company comes in, has lightning strike has blown that completely off the wall and fried a panel. And the house was only 5 years old.
Wow. Is there anything that you can do to combat that? Like if the if the house takes a direct lightning strike, is there anything that you can do on the electrical side that could possibly limit or prohibit as much damage as possible?
Yes, we can come in and check your grounding system in the house, make sure that you have proper grounding. A lot of the older houses have only minimal grounding, main grounding. The newer codes are requiring that we have 2 ground rods with the wires that are 6 feet apart. That's to spread that out to give us a little more protection from the surge. Also, the newer codes coming out that will be adopted soon is that all houses must have a surge protector on their services, on their panels. That's to protect the house and the system. We provide, like I said, we provide a very good one that protects the house like I said, I'm not going to say it's going to protect you from a direct strike. Nothing can protect you directly from a direct strike, but it'll limit the effects of a direct strike. It'll help you on a near strike.
Okay. You know, I got a question that this comes up. My wife, she likes to decorate like for every season, and she puts more wreaths and stuff all over my front porch, and almost all of them we have to plug in.
Yes.
And about every other day, the stupid outlet out there goes out. I mean, like, what the hell?
Well, that's a ground fault interrupter, circuit interrupter.
Right.
And that's doing its job. It's a couple things. It could be, maybe I need to come out and shake it for you, Vince, because it could be that it's just getting older. It needs replaced. It could be getting...
My wife or the outlet?
The outlet.
Oh.
I'm not going there.
Okay. I'm like, whoa.
Stay away from that one.
Yeah, I'll stay away from that one. No, the outlet could be getting moisture into it. Maybe it doesn't have a proper seal, so moisture's getting into it, and that'll cause it to trip. It could be just it could be overloading the circuit.
Okay.
Maybe you need to add another receptacle out there, another circuit.
Well,
maybe we don't need to decorate.
That's a solid point. Can you recommend that?
I can recommend that.
Okay, great.
Let her
I
know
need that
when you
written
get-
and signed
when
so
you
I can get it to my
Although,
wife.
in full disclosure, at Christmas time, I think I'm one of, the Griswold or what it is.
Clark?
Yeah, I'm that guy.
Just overloading outlets and just
Yeah.
hoping and praying it works. Well,
Yeah.
so to the last point there, you talked about the ground fault circuit indicator when it trips. In my house, I've had this happen to me before, and I've heard of this numerous other times. When that GFCI, that's what it's called, right?
Ground fault circuit interrupter.
When that actually trips and you've got that test and reset button and you go back in there and hit the reset to go back on, there's been numerous times where I've hit the reset and it doesn't come back on, it just keeps tripping. What would cause that?
You're still either you still have a fault somewhere in the line, whatever's causing the fault is still there, or it could be just that receptacle just over time will just start to get weak and it won't want to reset. Also, if you get to the point where it won't reset at all and you can't get it to reset, you need to call us out because we need to check it out, because it could be that your circuit is off. You could have had a bigger problem that now you have no power, because if you don't have power going to the GFCIs, they won't reset. So if the wire coming in doesn't have power to supply it, it won't reset. So that could be a problem, so you'll need to call us out. It could be just a breaker trip. It might have bypassed that GFCI and went right to the breaker. Or it could be a bigger problem that maybe we need, a true electrician needs to come out, certified electrician, a competent electrician, look at it, find the problem, and let you know what the problem is.
Got it. So the GFCI is kind of like, if you will, like a secondary breaker.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So, how does that wire really go bad, or how does it? If the outlet is not bad, and does that wire deteriorate over time, or how does the wiring actually go bad? Because in my mind, that's behind the wall, nothing's touching it. How in the world could that wire go bad?
Well, again, there's numerous reasons that it could go bad. One, over time, everything gets bad. I mean, look, our bodies fall apart over time. Cars fall apart over time. It's just a fact of life. How were they manufactured at the time? Did they use subpar material when they did it at the time? It gave us enough lifespan to get to this point, but now I said, I'm done. It could be just that. It could be that maybe that if it was on a ground fault circuit interrupter receptacle, maybe it wasn't doing its job and it was letting it too much go through it and heated up that wire. Now it's made that wire brittle, and the insulation that protects the copper wiring is falling off, and now it's touching something that's causing you to have a problem. There's so many problems. That's why you need a qualified electrician to come in and look at it, because we have the experience and the knowledge to figure those problems out.
So is there a difference? I know in some of the older houses that wiring is like, it's not copper. I don't even know what it is. I've just seen it.
There's aluminum.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the deal with that? Why is there not aluminum wire anymore and everything's copper?
Okay, back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a shortage in copper, so they started using aluminum.
I was alive then.
So was I. So
yeah.
there was
James, he's a young buck. I don't even. When were you alive then, James?
I was not. I was not even a thought yet.
Yeah, I was a 70s baby, so
Yeah.
I wasn't around.
Yeah, me too.
So there was a shortage on copper, so they started using aluminum wire. Now what happens is aluminum wire is a lot more pliable, it's a softer metal. So over time, when it takes heat, it'll expand. When it expands, that pushes any connection it has, it'll open it up a little bit. Now if it cools down, it'll start to contract again. So over time, what happens is that leaves a little gap in between those connections,
Mm-hmm.
and it could cause a little arc, and over time it can heat up that wire, heat up that device, and cause a fire. So that's why they stopped using aluminum, was they found that it was causing more problems. So if you have aluminum wire, you need to call us in, we can take a look at it. There are ways to do it without doing a complete whole house remodel, although I suggest doing a rewire, because that's the ultimately safe thing. But
When did that change?
Oh, man, I think that was in the 90s they stopped,
Okay.
and they really started enforcing it. But we can do what's called a Lumicon, where we just change the devices out and we put special connectors in to mitigate the aluminum wire.
You know, one thing that I've seen, when I've lived in some of these older houses, most of the time I rented them when I was in the college days. But anyway, there's like no outlets in the room. You know, and where now there's outlets all over the place, and you go to plug something in. So then we got the whole Clark Griswold in the garage, 15 cords going into this adapter and that adapter, and you know that, and so there's got to be issues with that compared to, you know, what goes on in homes today.
There is. What happens in the past, because we weren't using as much, we didn't have as many electrical devices, and we weren't using as much energy.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have as many receptacles in each room.
You mean you guys didn't have like laptops, tablets, phones? Y'all didn't have all that stuff?
No.
Or internet.
Yeah.
I mean,
And our phone actually had a cord.
Wow. How did y'all survive?
I remember the dial phone with the
Yeah, rotary.
And I think I was a remote for my family, because I'd have to get up and change the channel manually on the TV.
Yeah.
But so what happens is
Child abuse.
so over time, as we started to grow as a technology and a society, we started adding, well, we're going to do this, the cell phones, we're going to do computers, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Now, more TVs, now TVs in every room. So that's when the code changed. So we started adding, well, it used to be where you could have 2 or 3 rooms on one circuit. Now it's starting to go to the point where it's almost like one circuit to certain areas. So you can spread it out and have more receptacles. Now they require X amount of receptacles on a wall. You can't be more than 6 feet apart. There's codes for that, and that's
Right.
why.
Okay.
So even our receptacles have the social distance right now.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So this one's an always a huge argument. So when my wife and I bought our new house, we get in. Our outlets didn't even have the ground on the bottom of the receptacle in the outlet itself. I've seen this numerous times. Even the ones that do have the ground, they're upside down. Which way is right? Or does it matter, or is there a reason why the outlets are upside down?
There is an argument for both ways.
Okay.
There is no technical code for it unless you get into like hospitals and schools. A lot of those will require you to have the ground up. Their theory and their argument on it is if that receptacle, as you know, sometimes the cords will come out just a little bit and a little bit of the prongs are showing. They're saying if something falls down between it, if it's up with the 2 prongs up, that's the hot and the neutral up high. That if something falls down in between there because it's pulled out a little bit, it can technically cause a short or a fault.
I did not know that.
Yes. So if you flip it around where the single prong is up, that's the ground. So technically, if it's going to hit something, it's going to hit the ground first, and it won't cause a problem. It'll trip the breaker at worst.
So, because what I thought is when you have like the outlets that you're speaking of, you take the extension cord and you just cut that other piece off, and then
Right.
and then you use it anyway.
Well, so what you're talking about is the 2 prongs. The 2 prong ones, That's no ground. There's no ground system at all there. So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's something that, in that situation.
I see y'all laughing. Don't tell me you ain't done it.
No comment.
And can we plead the fifth on here?
Yeah, that's what I said, no comment. But in that situation for a two-prong where you don't have a ground, the proper thing to do is you need to call us in, because we can put either we'd have to run new circuits and get you grounds, or we can put a GFCI breaker in your panel, which now technically gives you that ground, and we change all the devices to three-prong, and you're technically protected at that time. Or you can put GFCI receptacles in. There's ways to get around it to make you safer, but with two-prong, it really doesn't have the ground.
Well, one more question I got on the prongs, because this has been like a really big deal that irritates me. What the hell is this? The one big side, one little side. I'm like, sometimes it takes like a hammer for me to stick this thing in the wall, and I'm sure it's some idiotic safety whatever, but it is the most irritating thing in the world to me.
One is the neutral, one is the hot. That's all it is. So the hotter, now you're going to put me on a spot. Right now I'm going blank. The one is the bigger side is the hot. I think it is in the neutral, and it's just that's all it is. So whenever you go to put it in, that is trying to stop you. But now with AC power, which I don't want to get too technical, it doesn't really matter which way you go because it's AC, so it goes back and forth, so it doesn't matter. The only time you really worry about is DC.
So I get this question a lot because on the garage door side of Absolute Services, we've got AC-driven operators and we have DC-driven operators. Mm-hmm. In your explanation, what's the difference between AC and DC drive motors?
Okay, AC is just alternating current.
Okay.
It just goes, if it's the fluctuation, and not to try and get too technical and bore people, but the cycle of the actual electrical, it goes up and peaks and goes down and peaks and goes down. That's AC. So it alternates. And then you got DC that's just a straight, steady stream. That's the big difference.
So on like the garage door side, for example, of AC/DC, the DC motors are going to be quiet, solid. Yes. They're not going to be real loud. Okay, correct. And that's the same with other appliances as well that might be AC or DC.
Correct.
Okay. And I've seen this from my own knowledge, and I've had this question brought up numerous times, and you've mentioned it here a couple times. You've mentioned a fuse and a circuit breaker. Is there a difference between the two?
Yes, the fuses are a immediate. That's just like a trip. If the fuse blows, you got to throw it away. And it's the older style of system that we had. We still use them in certain things, but we're trying to get away from them. The circuit breakers are reusable. It trips, so you can reset it. But a fuse, if it trips or blows, you have to take that out and put a whole new one in.
So the breakers are reusable.
Correct.
Kinda. Okay.
They stay in place. It's just like
So what? If I have a fuse, I don't. But if I did have a fuse box in my house, and I call Steve out to my house, what are you going to do to that?
Well, make sure I do a full safety inspection, which we do on every call we go on to check your house, make sure it's safe. We check everything in your house, whether it be the electrical panel, the service. We check your smoke detectors, your ground fault circuit interrupters. Make sure we bring up everything and tell you what we find. That we find it's an unsafe situation. We suggest things to you, and if you want to move forward, we move forward and fix it for you. If not, we don't. We don't pressure you on that. But if we find a fuse box in your house, I'm always going to suggest let's change it, upgrade it to a breaker box. It's safer, it's more up to code, it's more modern.
What's safer about it?
Well, again, the fuses over time, if it blows, you got to replace it. Now you can't find it. It's just an older system. It's just antiquated. So why not go to a more modern system that is set up UL listed, more fire rated? It's just set up and more tested now, UL listed for it.
It probably brings it up to code,
yes,
and different things like that too.
Yes.
Now, if they have those existing systems now, are they grandfathered in per se? Do they, can you keep that system if you want? Like, what's the code on that?
Technically, you can keep them because you are grandfathered in. There's nothing that says you have to change them, but if we come in and do work, if we have to extend circuits and stuff like that, if I have to pull a permit on a house to do work, a lot of times you have to, if I touch it, I own it, is the saying we say in the trade. So that means that everything in that house now becomes mine, and I have to make sure it's up to code. So because that's not up to code, if I'm running a brand new circuit, I can't run a brand new circuit to that fuse box. So that means I'm going to have to change that fuse box to a breaker panel so that we can run the circuit, so we can extend and do whatever we can.
That makes a lot of sense. Sounds safe too. So on that note, every year I experience this. My bill up and down and up and down and up and down. What would be the reasoning or some contributing factors on why my electric bill is up and down?
Well, there could be a few reasons. You could be overloading your system. You could be added, and it's just overloading that system, and it's just drawing too much energy, and it's not being as efficient as it should be. So we can come out and take a look at a few things. It could be your HVAC is running too high. Maybe it's not on the proper wiring. It's pulling too much, and it's doing whatever it is. That's what we need to come out and take a look at and check the whole system and see. There's problems there that we can take a look at and see if we can adjust it. Something's draining your system.
You know, I think I brought this up in a podcast before, but one of the things that contributes to it, if you have children that leave your front door wide open,
Yes.
you know, it's amazing what that does to the electric bill.
That and
There seems to be a direct correlation.
What did Josh call that? The conditioned envelope? You're leaving the envelope open.
my biggest problem with my kids is they leave every light on their house. Every room they go into, they turn the light on, the TV's on.
You supposed to turn those off?
Yeah.
Did not know that. We will put that into effect today.
Noted. Taking that one down. So what about outlets? What about all these tablets, these laptops, the computer, the TV, these lights, everything? Does all that stuff draw power when it's plugged in, even though it's not on?
People think that they don't. Even like you plug your toaster in, you think it doesn't draw power, but it technically does. All of that pulls just minute amounts. But if you add it up over the whole entire house, it adds up quickly and it draws more and more and more.
And
So
365 days at that.
right. So yes, you're right. So if you're not using your phone charger, unplug it. If that's what at my house I argue with the wife all the time. Unplug your coffee maker. You're not using it, unplug it. Unplug the toaster, unplug the things we're not using.
And what about a surge protector? What if I hit the off switch? Same thing, or do I need to unplug it as well?
On a surge protector? Oh, on that, no, you should unplug it too, because even though you have it off, it's still got the power running to it.
Okay.
So you're still going to use it. It's not a lot, but over time, like
Adds up.
it all adds up.
I have a question about fluorescent lights, because we have these things all over, and you know I've changed bulbs many times. Like one bulb won't work, one bulb does work, and then I twist and turn, and I'm like, I'm ready to throw these things in the friggin' garbage. They drive me absolutely crazy. So give me the lowdown on this fluorescent light deal.
Okay, fluorescent lights, the problem is, it's like, we'll use this for example, it's a 4 lights up here, 4 lamps in it.
For people not watching, that's
Right.
above us.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All 4 of us in this room looked up too.
It's my first time on a podcast, and I'm so sorry. So the lights above us, they're a 4-foot fluorescent fixture. They have 4 lamps in them.
Right.
Inside that fluorescent fixture, there's a ballast. All that ballast does is it just takes the energy coming from our panel and it gives it enough power to power up those lights. But inside of that, there's separate little teeny tiny circuits. So whenever you're saying that one will come on but the other one won't, could be that ballast is starting to go bad and that half of that ballast inside of it is bad, so you have to replace it. It could be what we call where you connect into the light into the actual fixture. They're called tombstones. It's just because if you look at it, it's just the shape of it.
That makes a lot of
tombstones.
sense. I've seen that.
So-
Now I'm not going to call them anything else other than that.
So
You're going to sound professional for once.
Hey, got to do what you got to do sometimes.
So eventually those will go bad. They'll get brittle, they'll break, they'll go bad, they won't make a good connection, so they won't work.
Right.
So again, something like that, call us in, we'll take a look at it. And I always suggest to get rid of the old fluorescent system, let's go to LED. Less
Right.
power, less problems.
And so can I convert that, or do I have to replace the entire thing?
No,
Or?
we can convert those over. I would suggest, because they're getting older now, let's change the tombstones and get rid of the ballast
Mm-hmm. and
put some LED lamps in there.
Is there a cool name for LED strips or anything?
No.
I think I'm going to keep my tombstones in. I got to sound, Vince called me out. If I got to sound professional, there's no cool word for
Well,
it.
technically, we would just put new tombstones in.
Okay. There
Okay,
you go.
I'll take it. Upgraded tombstones.
That's it.
So my wife actually asked me this last night. Yeah, be prepared. He's even drinking water this morning. He didn't have coffee. So be prepared to come out to my house.
Okay.
My wife asked me, hey, this outlet looks burnt. What is it? So I go over and I look at it, and it does look like, like somebody held a lighter to it. I'm not an electrician. What happened and why?
Like, depends on the situation. I mean, it could be just as they were trying to, maybe your wife was trying to plug a vacuum cleaner in. It doesn't get it in all the way. It'll cause a little arc right there. I'm sure you've seen it when you plug something in, you see a little spark when you go to plug it in sometimes.
Yes.
That will cause a little arc that could heat it up. It could be that it's just maybe whatever you put it in overheated the circuit, that receptacle. It was a little too much and it didn't do its job and it didn't trip where it should have. Could be numerous reasons.
Could you put it in upside down or backwards?
If it doesn't have the ground, yes, you could put it separately. If it's just a two prong.
So that's why you don't
What
put
I
the
would
ground
recommend,
on.
what I would recommend, tell her to stick a screwdriver in there and see if that fixes it.
I don't think I'm gonna recommend that to my wife without following by Vince said so. But I'm gonna throw my little
Don't anyone stick a screwdriver in there.
I'm the absolute conductor. I'm the AC here.
Yes.
He's the DC for dumb comments.
I'm full of them.
But if you go back to that, if you do see that there's burn marks on your receptacle or anything like that, or even you'll notice sometimes I've seen them where you have little burn marks. It's not burned, but you'll see a darker mark above the receptacle on the wall. Give us a call because that's for some reason it's taking heat. There's something going on.
It's almost like smoke's gone up it or something.
Something's happened. Give us a call. We'll come out and check it out for you.
So you just mentioned earlier about when you plug it in and you see that little arc. Is that an arc fault or is that something completely different?
That's technically an arc fault in a sense, because what it is as you're going through, it's causing an arc. Now that's why, man, I just had it and I just lost it. All that is whatever you're adding load. I know it's a crazy word to add it, so I don't want to add it too much to get too high on this, but load is just a current that whatever you're plugging in is drawing from the system. So because you're now adding load to that system, when you go to plug it in, that's why you see the arc. If there's no load on the system, you won't see the arc. But because there is, you'll see the arc. Now, if you have an arc fault protector, that's the new thing for all the circuits now. Almost your whole entire house is supposed to have arc fault circuit interrupters. For some reason, I can't say it fast. And there's supposed to be breakers in the panel. That's to protect you from any arcs that you see.
Is that something new?
Yeah, it's in the last, I think it was 2 code cycles ago or something like that. It started coming in. It started off where
About 6 or 7 years,
Yeah.
I think, is when that was started. So anything newer than that should have them.
Right. It started off with just like the living rooms and stuff like that. Now it's expanded to where they want the whole entire house basically be arc fault protected. And what that is it's to sense a short arc, where the ground fault is more of you become the ground for that circuit. It detects that and it trips it within a millisecond, so it doesn't electrocute you. Where the arc fault is to protect you from fires.
So
The screwdriver method will electrocute you.
Yes.
AC/DC here.
Yes.
We're back on track. Here we go. Hey, so you've mentioned GFCI, and if I'm correct, AFCI,
Yes.
the arc fault circuit interrupter.
Yes.
All right. So where do those two go? Like,
Okay, so there's different ways. You can actually do it multiple ways. The suggested way is to put them in a breaker box in the panel.
and that's the AFCIs.
AFCIs,
Okay.
and you can put GFCIs in there. So if you
Oh,
have,
didn't know that.
you're supposed to have GFCIs in all your bathrooms, your kitchen area, anything above your counters, in your unfinished basements, outside, anywhere there's in your garage, anywhere there's possibility of you being in water or touching water and plugging something in. It needs to be ground fault circuit interrupted or protected. It could be either a breaker, or it can be the receptacles. So a lot of times, instead of going through the house and just putting receptacles everywhere, you can just go right to the panel, throw a GFCI breaker in there, and that circuit is protected. You can also, now that like I said, the new code is almost the whole entire house has to be protected by arc fault. You can do dual function now, where it's arc fault and GFCI.
What's the water deal have to do with it?
The water, because again, water is a great path for electricity, a great conductor. And because as soon as you touch it, and if you happen to be touching this, like I said, if you go to plug your receptacle in, and somehow you touch that prong, the metal prong, as you're going into the receptacle, and you're standing in water, your other hand's in water, or something happens, somehow water's interrupted and introduced into it.
So if James tries to throw a toaster in the bathtub when he gets home tonight, when his wife is in there, it's not going to kill her.
I'm starting to see a
Point
theme
taken.
here.
Point taken, James.
I see where he's going.
I'm starting to see
I
a
see
theme.
where he's
The
going.
screwdriver for your wife.
I'm gonna make sure she listens to
Yeah.
this one too. She's
Yeah.
not gonna be happy about this.
Well, I mean, It is what it is, you know what I mean?
Might be a back.
She shouldn't
back-end
know
way for
about
this
what
one.
you say when she's not around. I guess.
One big question that I get a lot from my wife to myself is, and I can ask you this because you know what you're doing. What can I or what can you do, either as an electrician or as a homeowner? What can we do to make our house safer? I've got kids. How can I keep my kids safe from the electric or potential accidents or anything like that? What can we as the homeowners do, or what can you as the electrician do?
Well, first off, I would suggest that you call us in and let us do like I said, the home safety, electrical safety inspection. Let us take a look at your system. Make sure it's safe. Make sure your panel's up to date. Make sure it's up to code. Make sure that you have your ground fault interrupters in there. Make sure you have your arc fault interrupters in there. Another thing you can do is the newer codes in the last few cycles is that all the receptacles in your house have to have, it has to be tamper-proof. So if you look at the face of it, the older styles, the receptacles are wide open. You could just stick your screwdrivers in there. Where the new ones, they have little pieces of plastic that are over the holes, won't let you just jam anything in anymore.
Vince proof.
Yes. Yeah, they're like sticking anything in there proof. I mean, when you go to
Now,
plug in anything in the wall, I'm like, what the? You know.
Those are the ones that are really tough to actually get it in there.
And that's why.
Does that get better, or is it actually designed?
It's designed to be tough. Because think about it, you don't want your toddler going over there. Because I know, like I said, I have a 5 and 7-year-old at home. When they were in a toddler stage, they were trying to push anything they can in any holes just to make whatever. So that's to protect them. So if they try to take something and jam it in there, it's not as easy. It's not going to be real quick for them.
I always thought that was just kind of like a learning experience thing.
Yeah.
Also, like I said, go along with that.
Survival of the fittest.
Yes.
You know.
Have us come out and take a look at your surge protection on your house. Let us look at your grounding. That's help out a lot too.
Well, you've mentioned now a couple of times this electrical safety inspection.
Yes.
Kind of go into a little bit of a detail on exactly what you're looking for. I know you mentioned checking the GFCIs, but what are you looking for? Why are you looking for that specifically?
Well, when I come into the house, the first thing I usually do is after speaking to the customer and explaining to them what I'm going to do, I go to the panel to start off there. Because that's, like I said, that's the heart of your system. If that's faulty, your whole system's faulty. So I'll start there and I'll look at it and I'll just determine, is it a modern design? Is it safe? Does it have the proper size wires, the proper size breakers? Does it have the ground fault interrupters? Does it have the arc fault interrupters? Is it bonded properly? Is it going out right? Is there any damage to it? Is it water damaged? Is there holes in it? I'm looking for a lot of things, safety hazards, that I can bring up to you and let you know about.
You ever see stuff melted or smoking or?
Actually, yes. There was a house I just finished this week. I went to do, I thought it was just going to be a normal older panel change out. Thank goodness I did do the panel change out, because as I was taking the main breaker off, I noticed that the whole backside of it, which we won't see sometimes
Right.
on a normal inspection because it was on the backside, but it was actually melted and burnt. So without taking it apart, I would have never seen that. So we probably saved that house from catching fire. So we find that all the time. We do. I'll walk in, I've seen the bus bars, like I said before, that's where just a fancy thing where we plug the breakers into to make it connect to the panel. And that's what carries the current through the panel. I've seen those. Those are usually copper or aluminum. I've seen them actually melted.
Wow.
So.
What do you do in a house that is, for example, my AC unit kicks on and I can see like some flicker in my lights, or if I plug something into the wall, or if at our shop I turn the heater on and I will either trip a breaker or I will see the lights dim. What can we do in a situation like that, and what's that stemmed from?
Oh, there could be a couple of reasons. One, we need to come out and take a look at it and make sure that you have the right size service to you. You may be overloaded the panel in the service. You may be at a 100 amp service, but you've added things over time and someone didn't do their due diligence to do a load calculation to figure out what you need. And you've gone over. Now you actually maybe need 150 amp, maybe you need a 200 amp service. And you'll see that whenever you start to do it, you start to draw it, you'll see the lights dim a little bit. Also, I've seen HVAC guys have told me this. I didn't know this prior to. Sometimes on your HVAC, it'll do that initial rush as it starts up, and you might need to do a hard start capacitor in your HVAC. So I would I would definitely call us out to take a look at it. We can evaluate your system and see what's going on.
So during that safety inspection, after you go to the panel box, what's next?
Then I go through the house and I check all your GSCIs, make sure, because like I said, you're supposed to have them in your bathrooms, your kitchen, your garage, your unfinished basement, outside. I'll go through and check all those, make sure they're working, make sure they're functional, make sure they're in good shape. I check your smoke detectors, make sure they're functional, good shape. I go and check your AC disconnects. I check your service outside, make sure it's of good, modern, and safe and functioning, and it's not falling off the wall, which I've seen. You go up to a house and the whole meter outside where the utility comes in, it's literally falling off the wall because it's corroded so bad that the screws aren't holding on the wall anymore.
Now, if it falls off, does that mean I can stop paying my bill?
No.
Well, you can certainly try.
Yes, you can try, but I don't think they're going to go for that.
It's a good try.
So then once I've gone through your whole entire system and I've determined if there's any problems, I'll write up some options on what I've found and what I suggest. And I'd sit down with the customer and go over those options. And like I said before, if you decide you wanted to move forward, great. There's no pressure. I just bring it up to you and let you know what I found. And we can move forward or we can not. You can think about it and let me know in the future if you want to do it.
Now, do you give any kind of options? Like, you know, option 1, option 2, option 3, anything like that?
Yeah,
what we can do?
Usually I will give you 3 options.
Okay.
The one is pretty much, if say you call me out, if I'm just going out for a safety inspection, those 3 options usually are listed in things I found and what I want to talk to you about. But if I come out on a service call where you call me out to fix this light above us, the first one will be that light plus anything else I've found that I think is a safety issue that I brought up to you and spoke to you about. And it'll work its way down to the bottom one will be pretty much just what you called me out for.
Just the basics to get it back up and running.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. You know, one thing that I got a question about too is we've talked about, you know, getting that arc when you plug it in.
Yes.
Why do my light switches get that little pop when you turn them on and off? What is that from?
There could be a couple reasons. One, it could be the switch is going bad. Could be making a bad connection inside the switch when it goes to turn it on. I found that just the other day. I found a switch that would make that popping noise, and sometimes the light would come on, sometimes it wouldn't.
Now, is it a good thing to like balance the light switch
No.
right there halfway in the middle to see
No.
how long I can make it pop?
No. So also it could be another issue going on. It could be you getting a little backbeat. It could be getting a little problem with the wire, problem with the fixture. So that's where you need to call us out and let's take a look at it.
Oh, we got lots of questions. Because, you know, another issue that I had, you know, and our house is, I think, about 5 years old. So, if I turn my TV on in my bedroom, and I turn on like anything else, then me or preferably my wife has to go out into the garage and flip the circuit breaker back on. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? You know, and we have those wonderful arc fault breakers that you spoke of earlier. So there's something going on somewhere with these arc fault breakers.
They are great. They do their job. They protect your house and protect you. But they are a nightmare for electricians to troubleshoot them because it could be anything from I've literally had it where a cable box, every time they turn on their cable box, it would trip the arc fault breaker because something inside of there was just doing just a small little arc. And depending on how sensitive that arc fault breaker is, it can detect that smallest little arc and it'll trip it instantly. So in that situation, we need to come out and we'd have to go through every single receptacle, make sure that there is a good connection on everything, make sure everything's proper, make sure there's no problems. And we'd have to isolate it down and just start doing different devices. It could be that maybe an older TV is just causing a problem. Maybe it's an older TV, a few years old, and it's got a little arc somehow in it. I know the arc faults are notorious for like refrigerators. They don't like those because of the motors inside of the refrigerator. If it's an older refrigerator, there's always a little bit of an arc when it comes on. They don't like that. AC units, they don't like them. But you can make it work, and we just got to come out. Certain brands are a little more sensitive than other brands. So
Okay.
So I'm going out on a limb here. You said they're a nightmare for electricians to work on.
Yes.
But you just pretty much diagnosed my whole house. So I'm going to assume that Steve with Absolute Services is not a nightmare. You can get it figured out.
I'll figure it out.
Oh, you know what you're doing.
I'll figure it out. I'm just saying, what I mean is that sometimes customers think that, just because we're experts, we're going to come in and figure it out in 2 seconds. Sometimes it's not going to be that way. I mean, that's where the diagnostic fees that we have to charge, because there's times that I could be on a site for 4 or 5 hours just trying to find a problem. By the time I go through every single receptacle, crawl through your attic, underneath the house or something like that just to find a problem, and it could be something so simple as just a small little, the wire came loose in a wire nut in a junction box somewhere. And until we go from box to box to box to box,
Figure out what it is. I definitely know your pain there. So what type of lights, what type of wattage should we be using in our house? Because I know there's like what, incandescent, and then like now there's these fluorescent, and then
Right.
LEDs, and there's 60 watts, 40. What type of wattage
Little
should
curly
we use?
bulbs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what, I don't know what those things
okay,
are.
so I'm gonna go, this is my disclaimer here, this is my personal preference. I do not use the compact fluorescents, the curly little ones. Only
Oh,
because,
they have a real name?
yeah, they're compact
Did not know
fluorescents,
that.
yes.
I thought they were the curly bulbs.
And I call them the swirly bulbs. So
I don't like those because where they connect to the base, where it screws into the outlet, sometimes they'll get bad right there and break, and it can have a little flame shoot out, and you can cause a fire. I don't like those. So I've stopped using those. You can look that up online. If it's, that's my personal preference. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm saying that's my personal preference. I don't use those. I prefer to go everything LED. LED is, it's a little more expensive initially, but they have a longer life. They use less energy, and they're just better. And the wattage, you have to go with what that fixture says. So you're asking what wattage to use. Well, every fixture, when you buy a new light fixture, whatever it may be, it has a max wattage in it. So you can look at the paperwork that comes with it, or if we're installing it, we'll tell you what it is. That max wattage is what you can use. So if it says 60 watts, you can't put 100 watt in there, because it's not rated for that.
got it. Okay, so I mean, do you install light fixtures or anything
Yes, we
like
do.
that? You do?
Light fixtures, ceiling fans, chandeliers, whatever you need.
Oh, okay. So you are everything electrical's in.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned, that the little base of the swirly or the curly bulbs
Yes.
popping off. That's a good point. I've had that happen to me numerous times, right? And you not with those bulbs, just regular ones. Like I've busted them in my fan, like when I'm jumping up and down like this,
Yes.
right? When UK beats Louisville, it's great.
Oh my!
It's a great
He
feeling.
had to go there. He just had to go.
I had to say that because I know Vince doesn't know what that feels like. All right, so I've snapped the bulbs off, and the only thing that was left was that little copper brass looking thing down in the bottom of it.
Yes.
So I go.
I'm hurt.
I might have to take him out to lunch now.
Sorry, I'm a Florida State guy.
Yeah,
Even
we
base, you know.
both smoke you, so
You've at least got the tomahawk, so you know how that goes, and you can stick your hands up in the air.
I
You
mean,
busted
Louisville beat Florida State just a few weeks ago in football.
I know.
I
Well,
mean-
Florida State and Florida.
I mean, and I believe that's the only game Louisville's won this year. Matter of fact. Not that
Hey, we're not too far. We're not too far ahead of you.
But for those light fixtures, I should.
Yeah, sorry, I completely sidelined
It's
the
okay.
program.
I will always refer to call an electrician out to deal with it. You can do it. You can look it up and figure out how to fix it. But honestly, because if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, if you have the power switch on and power on, and then you could get electrocuted very easily trying to fix it.
So don't use needle nose and reach down there and grab it and twist it out.
Just
or-
call us and let us do it.
Okay. So and that brings me to a good point too. Now that you mentioned that, is electrical. Is there anything a DIYer can do? Is this a DIY trade?
Okay, let me just say this. Officially, no, we don't recommend anybody do it themselves, because it takes a certified, competent electrician to do it. A lot of stuff that will not, with warranties and stuff like that, and the way they're listed, it requires to be a qualified electrician to install these devices and stuff. So I don't suggest that. Also, if you don't know what you're doing, you can get hurt and you can die. It takes very, very little current from the electrical system to go through your heart, and you will die.
That is a big consequence.
Yes.
That would not be a good day.
And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I just want everybody to understand it. It's not for everybody to do.
What I don't like about the electric is it's hidden. You can't see the danger until you're dead, I guess, and then you wouldn't be looking at it.
Right. And I can tell you, I mean, I shouldn't admit this, but going 18 years, I have been hit, whether it be by accident, by whatever reasons. I've been hit before, and it does not feel good. So I always suggest call the professionals out. Let us do it. You don't want just anybody working on your car with your safety involved. Your house is your safety. If you do it wrong, you cause a problem. You want us to do it right.
Well, so you had mentioned like safety inspections, diagnostic fees. What does that entail as far as like charge or cost? Like, do we do any kind of like free estimates, or do we charge for diagnostic or anything like that?
If we come out to the house and I have to do a diagnostic work, that basically if I'm going through, you have a problem in your system, whatever it be, whether it be a bad receptacle, bad switch, bad light, whatever the problem may be, there's a diagnostic fee for me to go through and find the problem. Depending on what the problem is, if it's just a simple light switch isn't working properly, that's going to be there's different levels of it.
Oh, okay. And you'll be able to go over all that before starting anything.
Once I usually take a quick glance at the system just to figure out what's going on first, and then I sit down with the customer and tell them, okay, so here's the deal. This is what it's going to cost just for me to figure out the problem. And it could be different levels. Like I said, if we go into an arc fault problem, that could be hours that I could be looking for something. So that's different than me just coming in and change a light bulb compared to troubleshooting and diagnosing a arc fault problem. So
what I don't know if we haven't, I don't think I mentioned it on here, but I own the company Absolute Services as well, and we sell a membership program, and part of that program, we make 5 trips to the house because we do every trade. Well, the majority of the trades, we don't cover everything, but we do electrical, we do heating and air, we do plumbing, and we do garage doors. So we make a trip for each one of those annually. And of course, on the electrical side, it's going to include that safety inspection. Plumbing's going to be, basically a safety inspection. Heat and air and garage doors, we actually tune or clean or lubricate. There's several things that we do. So on the electrical side, I'm going to say that the majority of these kind of things are typically caught during that membership inspection deal,
yes.
And that's one of the reasons that we highly recommend that you get in our program, on the membership plan, just so that all this preventative type stuff doesn't happen, and you don't pay all those inspection fees and service fees.
Don't members get like some sort of a discount too?
Yeah, you're gonna get. On the membership plan, you get 10% off of everything that we do, and we charge no service fee to show up at your house. And of course, we're hoping that the 90% or more of the issues, whichever trade is out there, that they're catching any of those issues before they could become serious, and it's going to be, whatever equipment it is, it's typically going to last longer, and it's going to be smaller repairs.
Well, I can say for Lexington side of it, so for us is we have caught, and I'm sure you can back this up here too, Stephen, is that we have found so much going in on these inspections for garage doors and different things like that, things that would have broken or caused issues, in a couple of months or a couple of years. We found those and were able to correct them before some huge, big, catastrophic event happened. And I'm sure you probably have found a lot of the same stuff too, right?
And I've always told customers too, when do you want to fix the problem? Do you want to do it when you have control of the situation, or do you want to do it in the middle of the night, in the middle of a storm, when you don't have control? So
absolutely, there's nothing like having something when you want it, you can't.
Right.
Yes. Completely agree there. So to Vince's point of doing the membership, huge benefit. Definitely would recommend it. Any one of the services that we have out, whether it be electrical, garage doors, HVAC, plumbing. Talk with your service technician that's there, and they'll be able to go over things with you. You can also check out the website at www.absoluteservices.net. Give us look us up and go over the memberships there, and kind of check us out and see what we've got.
All right. That pretty much answers all the questions I had for today. I'm full of questions, but we'll hold it. We try to keep these things around 45 minutes to an hour long, just so not to bore listeners. So, but anyway, I appreciate you coming in here today. Probably helped that I'm paying you to be here, because so you didn't really have a choice. But
I'd have came in anyway.
But anyway, I thank the listeners and people that are viewing this in video form. So that's all I have for today. You have anything to close up, James?
I just want to give thanks to Steve for coming in here and giving our listeners some insight and background into electrical. Let them kind of know what to expect out of the service that Absolute Services provide, and just keep doing what you're doing, buddy, and deliver that good, amazing service. And like I mentioned, give us a call or look us up, www.absoluteservices.net.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.